Welcome to Bets on the Future, where we highlight the various career paths in the electrifying metals world. From the vehicle you ride in to the bridge holding it up, metals are everywhere. Why not in your career too? I'm Jennifer Betts, a metals industry veteran with almost 20 years experience, here to highlight these incredible career paths as told by the women who are living them. This week on Bets on the Future, we have a guest who took a non-traditional path to the metals industry. Please welcome Kelly Fairchild from Venture Metals. She is a seasoned global sales leader in driving revenue growth through strategic partnerships and innovative corporate strategies. With over 2 decades of experience in building collaborative relationships across diverse industries, Kelly excels in expanding market reach and maximizing revenue potential through investment recovery. In her current role at Venture Metals International, Kelly is responsible for new business acquisition, growth, and management of the industrial account portfolio. She plays a pivotal role in creating and building global partnerships between Venture Metals and the industrial sector. Additionally, Kelly leads Venture's marketing efforts, leveraging her expertise to enhance brand awareness and drive business growth. Kelly is known for her dynamic leadership style and ability to foster a culture of innovation and professional growth. She combines expertise in sales, strategy, business development, and leadership with a passion for driving sustainable growth and making a positive impact within and beyond the corporate landscape. Please give a huge welcome to Kelly Fairchild from Venture Metals. This week on Bets in the Future, we have an incredible guest. We have Kelly Fairchild. She is the Vice President of Business Development and Marketing at Venture Metals, based in Dallas, Texas. We ran into each other actually for the first time in Las Vegas relatively recently. And spoiler alert, we're recording this, a little bit before this actually came out. And it was the first time that we met each other in person. And so it's pretty cool that we get to talk to each other, learn a little bit more about what your background is, because we met during the big reveal in Vegas of the transition between ISRI and the Recycled Materials Association. So, Kelly, we didn't really get that much time to chat. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast to share a little bit more about your background. So I'm looking really forward to learning more about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I do know a little snippet about you, because the person that introduced us was very complimentary of you for a variety of reasons. One of which, they were very keen on, you have to interview her because you come from a little bit of a non-traditional metals background, is what I'll call it. And so I always have to go back to the question of, not everyone grows up thinking they want to get into the metals game. So if you don't mind, just do you mind sharing a little bit of like what you do currently, and then we'll go back to how you got there.
Sure. So currently at Venture Metals, I'm, like you said, Vice President, Business Development and Marketing. So I work with our industrial accounts, bringing on new customers. And then, of course, spreading the word about Venture Metals and building partnerships throughout the industry. And then, so going back to where I came from, my career has largely been in technology sales, hardware, software. I've sold different types of technologies globally for most of my career. So moving into metals was not something I ever even thought about, and quite honestly didn't even really know the industry existed until I was approached with this opportunity.
It's, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't really know it existed until a career fair in college. So it's not something that most people probably think about
Yeah.
at that point. How did you get approached about it? I mean, how did that crossover, that transition occur?
Well, a friend of mine I had a mutual friend with one of our owners, and so he kept telling me he wanted me to meet one of our owners, and I was working at the time, wasn't really looking, and he just kept bugging me about it, and I said okay, and so and then we met and kind of discussed it, and I said, look, I have no experience in this industry, but when we kept talking about it, he was like, can teach you we can teach you the industry, and you can teach us what you've learned in other industries, and it can be a good collaboration to do this. So I said, okay, what the heck, and then here I am. And I do love it. It's very fast paced environment, and obviously there's a ton of learning, but I've learned that even the people that have been in the industry forever are still learning, which is very cool to me.
Well, to your point, it's always been moving, it's always been changing. It hasn't really been a stagnant industry per se. There's been some areas where things have more or less, been consistent, I would say. How we've traded metals more or less has been, I'd say, consistent in how we've done it. There are some I'd say some new game changers coming to the table and how we're adjusting how we're doing some of those processes. But it's exciting to see individuals like yourself that have a tech background taking a look at our industry and saying, I want to get in. Like this seems interesting to me.
Yeah, it's funny now when I explain what I do to like friends of mine or other people, and I see like their same expression, like inquisitive, like what do you mean? Like, and then I have to explain it. But now I see myself like explaining it with such like enthusiasm, like, but don't you understand? There's all this metal and material out there that needs to be recycled, and so having it click for other people just reminds me of like how important it is just in general for the environment.
It goes to something that I read recently about AI in particular, where it ties to copper and what we've seen with the recent spikes, or I maybe increase in the copper prices is maybe a better way to put it, where some people are correlating AI has had an influence in the copper prices because of the server farms that are needed and required to run a lot of the AI power. And what's in these server farms? There's a lot of copper and those wires and the circuit boards, et cetera. And it's just most people don't put those two worlds together in that.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true.
It's something I, again, didn't really think about until relatively recently. I am a fan of ChatGPT. It's helped me plan some weekly dinners when I don't have the creative mindset to think of what to do after a long day for
Yeah,
that.
that's a good idea. I've never tried that.
It's great. A little tidbit sidebar for the metals. If you have, a couple ingredients, you can say, give me 10 ideas for a family of four for a weekly dinner. And there you go.
Nice.
In, in your experience, you've been in this industry how long now?
A little over 2 years.
Okay. So in those 2 years, well, I mean, you've seen some things, because there's been a little bit of some major players moving in, out, uh, broadly speaking. Um, you haven't left. So, what's probably the biggest reason why you're staying?
Um, I just find the industry so interesting. Like I said before, I mean, there's so much learning. I always wanted to learn the commodity markets. This was obviously a great way to do it. And I love that side of it. Uh, I also love the manufacturing end of it, like really helping my customers to find the best homes for their material. And, it's a circular economy. So really just helping from end to end, and we're all kind of in this together, and I just really enjoy it.
Well, you use one of my favorite words, especially in the metals industry, because a lot of people don't like to, I guess, associate it with us, even though we're one of the original ones of it. Um, People may not be familiar with venture metals. In the world of the circular economy is the sustainability. Can you help people identify where venture metals fits into that circular economy world, like specifically for, the metals industry, just so that they know like where in the supply chain y'all factor in?
Sure. So Venture Metals is a full scale recycler. So we are taking the metal from, let's say, a manufacturer, and we are bringing it in and we're recycling it down to spec to sell it back to the mills and the foundries so they can make new products. So we're the people that are actually doing the recycling and making sure that new products can be made.
That's pretty cool. I mean, you get to see the products being made. You get to take the recycled materials back, process them, send them back to the manufacturers. I bet you see some pretty cool stuff
Yeah,
that's
I
being
mean, it is
made.
cool because a lot of times our customers are also our suppliers. So we're buying and then we're selling back to them,
Mhm.
so they can make new products. So it is really cool.
In terms of where you're moving the material, has it surprised you how far some of the material moves?
Yes, I mean, we have a large export team and we also have facilities in South Korea. So we are moving metal very far. I think it was close to when I first started, but just learning about like the different freight rates and how at one point it was cheaper to send things to China than it was like down the street. So that to me was just mind boggling. But yeah, I had no idea that different metals could go so far.
I recently learned, I think we're either the second or the third largest export for the United States, the recycled materials industry. And I think it might be specifically recycled metals in particular in terms of the dollar value, which is kind of mind blowing for me. Like when you think of exports from the United States, you're thinking maybe agriculture, you're thinking maybe consumer goods, something along those lines. But we're second or third. And to your point, you're moving some of our excess raw materials is what I'll call it globally. We have a lot of raw materials here that people just don't even consider raw materials.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
It's part of the reason why we're seeing a lot of foreign investments from other companies like metal manufacturers. Arubis has, I think it was like $700 million investment for copper metals manufacturing in Augusta, Georgia recently. You're seeing, I think Wieland has been doing some investment. I mean, it's pretty incredible, the type of foreign investment that's coming to the United States.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think it will probably continue just because, I mean, if you talk about Europe and their focus on sustainability, it's it's much more prevalent there than the US. And so I think that we'll eventually catch up where, a lot of companies are really looking at their sustainability. And I know that just my time here, talking to companies, more and more of them are asking, about sustainability numbers because that's part of their initiative. And so I think that will continue.
That's been a really interesting factor on that front with the metals having that link to the sustainability front that, again, I don't think most people really thought of on that front. How have your friends and family reacted to what you've been a part of the past couple years?
I think that, I mean, they all kind of thought the same thing, like, wow, that's really great what you're doing for the environment.
Yeah.
I think it's, so I grew up in Michigan, and um, so we grew up recycling. And I know that it's different per state. I've seen your things about each state, the recycling per state. And I was like, yeah, Michigan actually did a great job because that was, I mean, more or less our beer money growing up. We'd be like, we'll recycle the cans, like we'll take them in, and then we got to keep the money. And it was like, um, we just grew up that way. But obviously in different states, Texas, it depends where you live. I mean, where I live now, we do have recycling come pick up at our house, but um, I know in other areas it's not as prevalent. So
Yeah. And well, and to your point, for those that may not have seen my TikToks about the recycling rates by state, Michigan dominates the can recycling game. They have been doing it since the 70s. And if you've never been to Michigan and never been to a grocery store there, you're missing out because they make it so easy to return your cans. It's pretty much wherever you buy a can, it's almost like that's where you can return the deposit. And that's probably not completely accurate, but the point is that they just make it so easy for you to be able to take your cans back to the grocery stores and get your deposits back. I mean, it's just incredibly easy to the
100%.
point where what's their recycling rate? I think it's like 95%. I mean, it's something just, I mean, it's almost 100%. I mean, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's up there.
Yeah. And really, I mean, you would see it, like we would go to football games and there would be people just going around collecting cans. And so it helps, like, reduce waste overall. And then you have someone recycling. So it's really, I think every state should do it. I mean, it's 10 cents a can or bottle.
Yes. Well, and I live in California now, and it is one of the 10 deposit states. I have never taken a can back to get my deposit. Um,
Really?
Now I put it in my recycling bin every single week, but I would have to drive 20 minutes to take my bottles back. Uh, to me,
Mm. Yeah.
that's
With the
kind
price
of
of gas now. Yeah. I mean,
uh
yeah.
it's
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
it's I don't know if it's worth it. And I don't think it's worth it for a lot of the Californians to drive out that much out of their way. And that's probably on the closer side for a lot of Californians, because I live in the LA-ish metro. Think if you're
Mhm.
in more of the rural parts of California, it's just not as convenient here.
Yeah.
And it shows in the recycling rate of their cans. I think they're closer to like a 45% rate, and we're a deposit state.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could go to any grocery store in Michigan and they had where you could return cans.
It's
Yeah.
it's very surprising on that front. Very surprising indeed. So it's maybe there's some technology that you could maybe bring
Yeah.
and and from maybe that's the new venture for venture metals to bring that to Texas, the can recycling aspect of it.
Yeah.
Um, you've been in the industry, I think long enough to see, what works, what doesn't work, career-wise, networking-wise. Do you have any advice for folks that are looking to get into a more sustainable career like this?
Um, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I mean, in terms of sustainability, I know that a lot of the universities now they have sustainability degrees. I know that Venture, we are starting to partner with a local school in Dallas to kind of build out a recycling project with them that will go year round. So really getting kids more in the mindset of recycling at a younger age and showing them that there is opportunity for careers in the industry. I think in general, though, I mean, I think, just being authentic, building partnerships, being trustworthy, I think you can really go far.
I fully agree with that. I appreciate that the schools are now actually showcasing that there are careers in this industry versus just, taking it to your can recycling
Yeah,
place. There's actually something afterwards where you can make a living at this.
yeah. And it doesn't have to be you just if you're an accountant and you want to be part of a recycling industry, you still can do that. It's not like not every position can be in the yard actually and in operations. There's so many different roles that you can take.
I read an interesting stat recently from Deloitte that did a case study on Gen Z in the workplace, where a good majority of Gen Z are looking to find a workplace, a company culture that aligns with their personal beliefs and their values. And sustainability and is high up there on their wish list, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the point that if it doesn't align with their personal beliefs, they will leave the company. I thought that was a pretty major selling point, to be honest, for the metals industry in general. And from an advertising standpoint, I think the recycled materials side of it, the raw material side, I think maybe could use a little bit more advertising on that aspect. I think y'all are doing a great job getting into the schools early. That's probably more on the forward thinking front versus some other areas maybe, could use a little bit of assistance on that front to reach that next generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, even having interns, like as people are trying to figure out what they want to do, bringing them in and having them try a couple different roles and seeing where they really enjoy to fit in. And then hopefully once they're done with school, they come to work for you.
It's 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 definitely interesting. I suspect you have some very cool things that come across your desk, I should say, these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, when you're taking a look at like the next opportunities, like, what's kind of coming down the pipeline, if you will, um, what do you see for the metals industry? Is there something, that you think is, kind of in the future? I mean, we've got a lot of raw materials, right? We're seeing more investment. Is there something, are we gonna see those continuing trends, particularly for the United States?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as technology goes, I think that the tech companies were a little behind when it came to this industry. And so I think just from what I've seen, they're trying to catch up to what some other software systems and things like that I've seen just in my career. And they're trying to really hurry up and put something together, which, it's great that they're there now. I mean, I know when I started, I was like, wow, there's still a lot of things that are very manual, that could be automated. Uh, and I think that more and more people will, in tech companies and different avenues of being able to, work within the industry, will continue. I think what won't change and hopefully won't change is that and what I've really liked is that it really is a relationship based industry. And so in other industries I've been in where tech kind of overrules everything, you started to lose some of that relationship part of it because of the tech. And I know that, some of these younger generations of the scrap companies, the family owned companies, and now the younger generation, they're going to come in and take over. I think that they will keep that relationship, even if they do start adding more tech. And I hopefully I'm right, because I really do like that part of the industry.
I think you're spot on for that. When I started off in the industry and I started going to conferences like the one that we were just at, the expo side, there, I mean, could probably count on one hand if there even was a software company that was exhibiting there, right? Versus now there's definitely a significant more. But yeah, to your point, if we went to a different industry and outside of metals, there are uh, there's just so much more technology. There's more sophisticated software that exists out there that does not exist, or hasn't, I should say, has not been implemented yet in our world. And so there can definitely be some of that. Do you think some of it has been maybe the software companies aren't aware of our industry, or do you think it might be an adaptation or excuse me, an adoption at, resistance? Like, why do you think that
Mm.
slow
I think
process?
I think adoption is probably one of them. I know that we do have some um, older traders that would prefer to not use technology, which is fine. But I think that I almost want to say it's because the tech companies came in, or the ones that have tried to build something, and they didn't understand the industry. There's lots of moving parts, right? So I almost think it needs to come from someone that's in the industry and then build the software or build the technology. Because if you do it the other way around, where a software developer comes in and doesn't understand the industry, I think there's just a disconnect. And so I think if somehow those two can merge, or get on the same page where it works for everyone, then I think that there will be more adoption, maybe.
I'd agree with that statement. There are some intricacies that exist in our world. We also like to name things two names in this industry as well.
That's true. That's true.
We can't just name things one thing. No, there's always got to be like two names and a lot of names. Like I just got the the giant Rima directory, right, with all the glossary of terms, and it cracks me up every time. Every
Yeah.
time. It's the and for those that are listening, REMA, Recycled Materials Association, give it a Google, because if you want to crack up with some great names, we have a lot of, I'll call them ingredients into the metals manufacturing world, essentially all the different grades of the recycled metals that exist out there. And we just love, I want to know who gave them these names. Like what committee like set this up and was like, you know what, we're running out of B words, we're running out of C words. Let's just pick a name in the dictionary and just that will work. We'll pick that name. Like
Yeah.
and go with it. So it's yeah. It's
Yeah. I mean, I had a meeting with a tech company. It was a really big tech company, and they didn't understand the buying and the selling. They're like, wait, but it's sales, but you're buying and selling. And that to them was just such a, they couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
I, so
It's an interesting one. I was recently at the Waste Expo, which is put on by the National Waste and Recycling Association. I'd never been to that one, and so there is some overlap with the metals world because obviously there are metals that go to landfills or go through some of the recycling facilities. And so I was curious to see if there's any software companies, other equipment manufacturers, et cetera, that might be of interest to my world. And so, I was actually pleasantly surprised. Microsoft was there, like from a software perspective. So I'm cautious, cautiously optimistic. Okay, like we're maybe getting to that realm, but there were other um more specific, looked like from the industry software companies as well there. So I think we're headed in the right direction. I think there are still more opportunities within the metals industry to have a combination of technology and metals. AIS tech was also recent. Again, I'm giving away spoilers to when we're recording this podcast. But I've also heard of several tech companies that were at that conference as well. That again, the founders of those companies, those software companies, came from the industry, and so I think you're right on the money. I think people are recognizing that you have to be from the industry to really understand some of those nuances.
yeah, or at least try to understand it before.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, but before we go, I want to give you the opportunity because I know we kind of went a little all over the board on some of the topics, but is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience? But before we go, in case we didn't hit any of the items that you wanted to talk about.
Um, no, not that I can think of. I think we hit a lot of good points. Um, Venture Metals, if you haven't heard of us, look us up. If you want to know more about us, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk.
And on that note, the best way to get a hold of you would be LinkedIn. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay. And Venture Metals website would be
venturemet.com.
okay. And then this is Kelly Fairchild. You can find her on LinkedIn. And thank you so much. It's been really wonderful. It's very exciting to see somebody from the technology world coming over to our metals industry, bringing some of the technology with you, some of the passion. It's been really exciting to see what you've been working on in Dallas, Texas, and also around the world, honestly. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, and I really look forward to seeing what you bring, for many years to our industry. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.